Okay, so Bismillah salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. All of what we've learned in the book for the couple of weeks that passed, it was more or less an introduction. Okay, so today we're going into the main subject of the book, which is the three questions. Okay, that a person will be asked in his grave. Okay, so the Sheikh says, فإذا قيل لك ما الأصول الثلاثة التي يجب على الإنسان معرفتها فقل معرفة العبد ربه ودينه ونبيه محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, so the English should be, if you're asked, okay, what are the three fundamentals that are obligatory upon every human being to know? Okay, it's obligatory for every human being to know. Is that what you have in your text?
Yeah.
Okay, then say to know, for the slave to know his Lord, okay, to know his religion, to know his prophet, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these are three questions that the Shaykh calls the three fundamental questions. So the three questions a person will be asked in his grave. Okay, so who is your Lord? Who is your prophet? And what is your religion? So the Shaykh wants the people to learn about these three fundamentals, or three questions. But in the grave, you will ask, your answers will be based on your what you practiced. Okay? Here everybody can say, my Lord is Allah, my Prophet is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my religion is Islam. But in the grave, you will be saying according to your what you've acted upon. So as the hadith says, that when a person is put into his grave and the people walk away, okay, the person can hear the footsteps of the last person who's walking away. Then the angels come, two angels come, the names of the two angels are Munkar and Nakir. And they ask the person these three questions. Who is your Lord? Who is your Prophet? And what is your religion? If the person answers incorrectly, then he will be hit with a hammer, okay, and he will be hit so hard that everything would hear, okay, except the human beings and the jinn. So the animals and the rest of the creation can hear this, but we as human beings cannot hear this. And his grave will become tight, okay, till his ribs intertwine, or the completely cross each other, and he will remain in this grave, and he will have a bad companion who is the personification of his deeds and his actions. And the person will say, who are you? He would say, I am your bad deeds. So that person will have a stench, he will look very ugly, and he will be accompanying this person in his grave, and the person will be punished in his grave until the day of judgment, until Qiyamah. As for the person who also, somebody would be asked, and he would say also, I heard people saying, but I'm not sure. سمعت الناس يقول فقلته. So that would be the person who's a hypocrite. Even the hypocrite or the munafiq will also not be able to answer correctly. But he would say, I heard people to say, he will also be punished. The person who answers correctly, he will be told, you have answered correctly, you've done well, and then his grave will be widened as far as he can see, and a garden of paradise will be open, a window of paradise will be open for him, a window of paradise. So the smell will come into his grave, okay, and also he will see a beautiful person with him in his grave, and he would say, who are you? And he would say, I am your good deeds. Okay, so some people might say to you, we don't believe in the punishment of the grave. And even within the Muslims, there are people who say we don't believe in the punishment of the grave because they're saying we can't see it physically. Okay, and there was a Shaykh called Ibn Taymiyyah and other scholars. They gave them evidences, because they would say, look, when we look into the grave, we can just see bones, and we can just see a body. You can't see punishment, you can't see anything. Okay. So the Shaykh, he gave them examples. He said, for example, when a person goes to sleep as well, even like it's a bit like the dream as well. When a person he goes to sleep, he's in another magarasa, his soul is traveling, he sees punishment, he sees all of this. This is like punishment for the soul as well. So it's possible for the soul to be punished, and it's in another world called barzakh, okay, that human beings can't get to unless they die and they can't return. Okay, so there's many evidences in the Quran and the Hadith to prove that there is the punishment of the grave, and Al Fir'aun, the people of Fir'aun will be the people. They will be. Is mentioned in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, وَأَدْخِلُوا آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ أَشَدَّ الْعَذَابِ. They will be put into punishment, and then they will be put into a greater punishment on the Day of Judgment. Okay. So the scholars are saying that lighter punishment was the grave, and the greater punishment will be on the Day of Judgment. So anyway, if you believe in Allah and the Quran and the Sunnah, you will believe in the punishment of the grave, because there's many hadith regarding that, and it's mentioned in the Quran indirectly. If the person denies this, then he would deny many ahadiths which are in Bukhari and Muslim. As there's one hadith where the Prophet ﷺ went past the grave, and he heard two people being punished. So Muhammad ﷺ was given the ability to hear these two people who are being punished in their graves. Okay? And then he said these two people are being punished, and he said one of them is being punished for not for soiling, for not screening himself from his urine, so he will get soiled with his urine, and another would spread rumors. Okay, does that make sense? So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, these two deeds are not great, but they are great, meaning they have great consequences, because when a person doesn't purify himself properly, or his urine splashes on him, then his salah is not going to be accepted. The person who spreads rumors, also, he will cause fights and disputes, and he will cause bloodshed, just because of the rumors and spreading lies, or rumors basically. Does it make sense? Yeah. So actually I'll tell you a quick story about the dangers of telling rumors. One scholar, he mentioned in one of his books a true story of a of a man who had a slave. Okay, this is when there was obviously slavery a long time ago, and he was selling his slave. He took his slave to the market, and he said he wants to sell his slave. So people, one man said, "Why do you want to sell your slave? I want to buy him, but why do you want to sell him?" He says, "Because he has a fault, or he has a negative, he has a bad quality. That quality is that he spreads rumors." So the man said, "That's not too much of a problem. I will buy him." So he bought him. He took him to his house. The slave got straight down to work, and he went to the wife, and he said, "You want your husband to love you, okay, even more?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Tonight, get a pair of scissors and cut a bit of his beard while he's asleep." Okay, so then he went to the husband, and he said, "Tonight your wife is going to try to kill you." So as both of them slept side by side, each one waiting for the other to make a move, the wife gets up with the scissors. She's like this, holding it up high. The husband grabs the scissors and he stabs his wife, thinking that, because he's thinking, when is she going to try to kill me? Did you hear me?
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so then the two families started to fight. So the husband's family and the wife's family, they started to fight. Then the two tribes started to fight, and a big war happened, and many people died, all because of that one slave. So it shows you the dangers of spreading rumors. And so these two people who have been punished in their grave for spreading rumors, and for not screening oneself from urine, on the Day of Judgment there will be questioned about their prayers, that one person would be questioned about his prayers, and the other would be questioned about the consequences of the spreading the rumors. Anyway, so the Sheikh says, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ فَقُلْ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ الَّذِي
I have a question.
رَبَّانِي. Okay, you have a question?
I have a question. Yeah. So, you know how they had slaves? Is that allowed? Was it before Islam?
Okay, slavery is in terms of, for example, you find many laws in Islam, okay, that exist even till today, but and that was normally a part of life, of normal day life. So you will find that many societies or the modern world, there's a lot that has changed, but Islam doesn't really change. Okay, so when Islam started with the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam freed slaves. Okay, they were like Bilal radiallahu anhu, who was freed by Abu Bakr. Okay, the Sharia also encourages people to free slaves. So there was slavery. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told people that, for example, when if a person commits, like he breaks his fast due to violating the laws, like if a person, for example, has intimate relationship with his wife in Ramadan, then he has to either free a slave or feed 60 people. He has to feed people, and he has to also, or he has to and fast for 60 days consecutively. So you find in the Sharia that there's always, you free a slave. The person who kills someone by accident, he's also given he's also told to choose of these, and also most probably in the Sharia there's also the option of also the blood money as well. But anyway, you find in the Sharia there's mentioning of freeing slaves. Now, does slavery exist? Slavery exists within the Sharia, the laws of the Sharia. Okay, so for example, the Sharia says if there is slavery, then that slave has to be treated like like the members in the household. He eats what they eat, he drinks what they drink. If the person tells him to work, he works. The master tells him to work, he has to work. Give him work that he's able to do. So, if you look at the Sharia, you will find that Islam came to regulate the people's lives. Okay, so can slavery come back again? It's possible. If there's, for example, there was wars, there were captives, okay, and there were within those captives, some of them will be made into slaves. So this is how basically slavery, if there's slavery, for example, if the modern world started slavery, yeah, just imagine if the modern world people started taking slaves, then the Sharia will be applicable, and it will make sure these slaves get their rights. But how did they become slaves? Islam doesn't really talk about that. You understand? Islam doesn't say.
But I don't understand.
It's mainly slaves
How?
normally come through, for example, through war, mainly through war. When people, it's.
But how can you
Go
why
ahead.
can you own another person?
How could you?
Why are you allowed to own another?
What it is
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. For example, the Sharia, for example, recognizes certain things that was within society. Yeah, it recognizes it. So
Okay.
it recognizes it, but it regulates it. For example, polygamy. Polygamy is something now that the modern world, they don't practice it, they don't accept it. But it was a part of natural life then. So the Sharia came and regulated it. So for example, if the Sharia came and said to people, you're not allowed to have slaves, then people will be like, our forefathers had, it would be tampering with nature. Tampering with nature, okay? Because there are many ways people become slaves. Even the word, for example, addict. You know the word addict, where it came from? It came from the root word of slave, or it came from the word slave. It was normally, for example, a person who couldn't pay, for example, his debt. Yeah, and then he would make himself as a slave for that person. He would say, "I can't pay this debt, and I will be your slave." Okay, so I don't want to go into too much of the details, but this exists in Sharia. I'm not going to deny it, and we can't deny it. Otherwise, that would mean we will have to disbelieve in all the ayats which are in the Quran. Okay, and the ayats which are in the Quran, most of them are talking about freeing slaves. He doesn't talk about taking slaves. Okay, and in war, for example, in war, there will be people who will be taken as captives, and normally it's something that we as in our time we can't really understand it. Okay, but in another way, you can say Islam comes to abolish basically slavery, but the laws that regulated it were already there. But I don't want to go into too much details, inshallah. This is more, it does go into the aqidah, but does that make sense to you? Does that, so do you accept that? Or are you saying why does Islam allow slavery?
I don't. I know that you said that it doesn't encourage it, but why does it not forbid it? Like, you know how I get you mean, like that if they completely banned it, that people wouldn't take people wouldn't take kindly, like they wouldn't want to change their ways. There was lots of other stuff that was a norm before that was like banned after Prophet ﷺ. Like people used to ban girls because they thought they were less than boys. Especially like in the pre-Islamic era. So if you can ban some of the stuff, even if it's part of people's culture, why can't you ban something like owning slaves as well?
Because, for example, at the moment, there's one thing that we won't understand, Magaransa, because we haven't lived in a time where slavery is normal. Okay? We haven't experienced it. So, Magaransa, for us, obviously, we see slavery as, we imagine it as Magaransa, how slavery was with Magaransa, the Westerners, and how they enslaving people. This is what comes into our mind. Soma, this is all we know about slavery. All we know about slavery is torture, punishment, Magaransa, someone who's not free. Okay? But that's why it's going to be very hard for us to understand. So, if we lived at the time when Magaransa, at the time of the Muslims, and when Magaransa Muslims there were empires, so some people would actually choose the option of being a slave, okay, because they would rather work for someone, eat and live with their masters, to an extent that even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a slave who was a freed slave, and then he chose to stay with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam rather than his father. So you can't rub off, for example, slavery from the history of Islam. Okay, and also you can't, for example, since there's no slavery now for us, we don't need to, for example, we don't need to worry about it because our Sharia doesn't encourage it, and the Sharia is only there. There's many things that are not preferable, okay, but they're still allowed in Islam and they're regulated due to the circumstances of people. Does it make sense? So we won't fully understand. We can only sometimes you just have to say that the Sharia is just. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed this for a person to be a slave in whatever way, obviously you don't just take even one of the major sins is he says in a hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at this person, he will be angry with this person, okay, and there will be a grave sin for the person who takes a free person and enslaves him. Taking a free person and making them into a slave. That's one of the major sins. So it's a history of a family who have been people who have been in slavery. They've accepted slavery as their way of life, or a person who's been bought and then sold to another. So the Sharia does not allow a person to enslave a person like that. It's normally through wars, captives. And then there's also the other side of the battles or the politics behind wars and taking people who don't want to become slaves. Anyway, something beyond our small understanding. Okay, so we'll move on to the lesson, inshallah. I think we discussed. It's good to bring these topics up, though. Okay. So he says, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ فَقُلْ رَبِّي اللَّهُ الَّذِي رَبَّانِي. If you're asked who is your Lord, say my Lord is Allah, the one who nurtured me. Okay, my Lord is Allah, the one who nurtured me. Does that make sense? وَرَبَّى جَمِيعَ الْعَالَمِينَ بِنِعَمِهِ وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي لَيْسَ لِي مَعْبُودٌ سِوَاهُ. And he is my Lord, I have no other Lord. Okay, he's my Lord and the Lord of the worlds or the universe. Okay, so وَرَبَّانِي, and he nurtured me with his, and the whole world with his favor. Okay, and he is the one I worship alone. I don't worship anything else. So basically the Shaykh is explaining to us the meaning of Rabb. What does Rabb mean? He's saying Rabb or Lord means Ma'bud. Okay, and why are you choosing Allah as your Lord? Because He nurtures you, He provides for you, He sustains you. So this word Lord, it's comprehensive when it's in Arabic. In English it could be a little bit restrictive. So this is what Lord means. So he gives us the evidence and he says, وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Okay, and he explains to us what عَالَمِين means. وَكُلُّ مَا سِوَى اللَّهِ عَالَمًا. Anything other than Allah is alam. So everything in this whole world, it will be considered as alam. Okay, you could say the universe or the universes. Okay, everything that exists is called a alam. And he says, وَأَنَا وَاحِدٌ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الْعَالَمِ. And I am one of the creatures or the species in this creation. Does that make sense? So he's just explaining to us the meaning of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. The Alhamdu, all praise, that's why he mentions the blessings. So all praise is to Allah, meaning our praise and our worship is for Allah. Alhamd. Okay, so all praises, that alif and lam makes it comprehensive. So all praises to Allah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, that lam says it's for Allah. So all praises are for Allah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, because he's the Lord of the universe. Just in that ayah, he gives us the understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and why we should worship him alone and thank him alone. So with thanking and being grateful, there must be a blessing. So what is the blessing? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you try to count the blessings and enumerate the blessings of Allah, you'll never be able to enumerate them. Okay? Khair, inshallah. I think we'll just cover that one for today because we have had a side topic. So if you have, do you have any questions?
About this? No. If I think of anything, I'll write them down and forgot them next